to my party, we're just getting started. A life is a dream or a nightmare scarring. Hand me a drink cause I think I'm going all in. Get me a shrink who can catch me when I'm falling. Cover up my scars, flip the handlebars, crashing in my car, wake up in a bar. I'll be a superstar, just on my avatar.
Welcome to Story Demon. I am Chris Hoke, also known as David C. Hoke, author of the new and wonderfully accepted and world-renowned book Raw. I wish it'll get there though. It'll get there. And along with today, as per usual, the lovely and talented
Celeste Prater, author of a lot of different books. Got over 23 of them, I believe, out there. Multiple genres.
You write pretty prolifically. I don't know if I'll ever catch you.
That's 10 years. 10 years.
10 years. That's 23 in 10 years?
Yeah, in 10 years.
That's over 2 a year, right? Is my math right on that?
Yeah, it's knocking them out.
So, like, what? This is not the subject for today, but just for curiosity, like, sure. What is your average turnaround? Like, average, not some are longer, some are shorter, but what is your average turnaround from idea to a book is done?
From conception to the book coming out and actually being published?
Well, maybe that might be too broad. I guess you start writing it to it's done. We'll just say that. Start writing it to done.
Okay. Start writing and it gets done. With my romance books, that's usually about maybe 4 months.
Okay.
That's really pushing it. And then I have most of that at the end is the editing, because I'll read it about 60 to 70 more times to make sure I hit everything.
Yeah.
And then I'll step away a week and come back. So actual man hours effort, about 4 months.
So
So
for the non-romance ones, it's what?
Oh, well, it depends on the content, because Visiting Darkness, like I said, I started it way back in 2016. Sat on it for a little bit and started it up again.
Yeah.
And so I guess when I really started hitting it hard and heavy after I had my outline and everything, it was about maybe 4 to 5, maybe 6 months with the crime thriller one. Yeah.
So Mirage might be a bad one for me to judge myself against, because I had to learn how to write a novel basically.
Right.
And I would imagine each draft, because you had just the original one was just a story. It was not even a book. It was just like a story. Mirage went here, Mirage went there. For each iteration of Mirage with all the different drafts, I would guess those were roughly 8 to 10 months. I think I took for each time. That sound about right?
Yeah. Around there. Plus, you're dealing with an epic, so you had a lot to write. You had a lot to cover and get through. So
it was a pain.
My novels average 287 pages, maybe 98,000 words or something like that. And yours had what? 148,000 or 160,000?
No, it was 206,000 words and 666 pages paperback.
Right.
So it was a monster. I don't know why I can't just I don't know why everything I do I got to power out.
My little book. Yeah, I wrote a 100-page book for the friend at work who had built a Adobe home, a house out of paper.
Yeah,
it's like Adobe, but it was done with paper. Very interesting. It's called "We Rest Inside a Paper House."
That's awesome.
And and it's 100 pages. It was a memoir style kind of how-to book, a little mix of genres there, and pictures. Had a bunch of pictures and stuff in it. That took me about maybe 2 months. And I knocked that one out.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, that's a great segue. What we're talking about is actually a great segue to our topic today, which is about outlining. And I think that some of my delays are partially due to outlining and learning how to do it in a novel. I know how to do it in a screenplay for sure.
Right.
But anyway, outlining is probably more your forte. So lead us off. Your thoughts on outlining.
Okay. And I kind of mentioned a little bit in our last podcast about a lot of people's mind will just shut down. They go, I'm not going to do an outline. It takes away from my creativity. I'm just going to write whatever I want to write, and it'll take where I need to go. Well, that's the creative part of it, that you need to let yourself go on that. But you still need to keep a little, the marbles from falling off the table. You need to keep some kind of structure. Again, like if I'm so creative and I know that Joe's going to run this way and then the storm's going to come and this tornado hits, and then you're going, now what do I do with Joe? And you get 800 words in and you don't know where you're heading. Or you box yourself so bad into a corner 4 chapters in and you say, oh God, I need to go back and revisit because it's not making sense at this point. So as long as you have a little guide, it's just a little guide to go along. And what I consider that's really important with that is, well, how can I say that? It's not set in stone. It's an outline that's not like you write everything down from the very beginning to the very end, and you know exactly everything's going to happen from the twists and the turns, everything. No, that takes away from your creativity, I do believe. Right. Or it makes you too anal when you're going into it. You still want to be creative. So what I've usually happened with me is like I got this idea in my head about one of my romance stories. I know what character I'm dealing with, and I flesh out my character. Like, who is he? Mm-hmm. Who is this character? Who is this female character? So I make sure that I'm dealing with who are they. So they're in my mind. I have them as a fleshed out person, whether they're alien or whatever. I know what their wants and needs and everything's are. Right. Like I've been told in some of my reviews from my romance books that I love Celeste's books because none of her characters are the same. They're all different. They're not cookie cutters. Yeah. And when I first introduced on our first show, I read over 600 books. And that's what I would see. Somebody had a series and it's like, that's the same guy in the next one. He just has different color eyes. Yeah. Or it's the same guy. He just has a different occupation. You know, he did the same thing. Everything. It's just the same person over and over again. Right. So mine have these little flaws and something else happens. So if you could flesh out your main characters that you're going to be having there, you'll have a lot more chance of being successful, that one of your readers is going to connect with that reader, with that character. So they'll want to keep reading. They'll be invested in them. So, and go ahead.
Well, so I can't remember. There's a guy that teaches screenplays, and I'm drawing a blank. And it's not Sid Field. That was my favorite. He's long past, but there's another guy I can't remember who it was. And what he suggested you do in outlining a screenplay is to create your character. And so you write a backstory or what. Basically, start by building a character, almost like a Lego set. You know, male, female. What do they do for a living? Married, kids, no, yes. What's their flaws? What's their background? What's their culture? And as you build that, the story will start to present itself as you develop the characters' weaknesses and stuff. And then that can lead to an outline from the character themselves. Now, traditionally, and you might be going there, if you're going there and I'm beating you to it, I apologize.
Okay. Go for it.
But with like screenplay outlining, the traditional outlining is you actually literally set out these steps. And then screenplays, you basically have 3 acts, and within each 3 act, you have 3 parts. And then you can even take the second act, which is your longest one, and break it into two parts, and then each would have 3 of those 2 parts. So your first act you've got a first act with beginning, middle, and end, and scripts are based on 120 pages, so it'd be a 2-hour movie. So your first 30 pages, you have 10 pages, 10 pages, 10 pages, 10 pages to set up, 10 pages to build upon, and then you have the last 10 are set you toward your spin. They'll send you into your heart of your story. And then your second act, the first half of the second act will have a beginning, middle, and end, and you end up in the middle. And the middle of the story is when you have something that really turns the story, and you're going towards like the character is almost sort of like
they're changing, they're morphing to something else.
Yeah, the story, the plot changing. And so that second half of beginning and end builds you towards your conclusion, and and there's different ways to do your third act transition. Some people make that the most hopeless part of the story. Sometimes they make it that's when they finally get their shit together. There's different ways to approach that. And then your third act is your conflict resolution in 3 parts. And then you beginning and end of your conflict resolution. In the last 10 pages, you literally just wrap it up. And that's how you literally frame out a story. Like you frame a house with these different points.
And that's, you're extremely important with the screenplay I learned, because like even when you're trying to enter them into contests, you've got 120 pages is all you can do for a script. That's it. You go over that, they're going to knock you out.
Right.
Well, in a novel, you can write as many pages as you want and go anywhere you want to. You can have all kinds of crazy. So you got a lot more leeway with a novel, which I love, because when I did start doing the screenplay, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to cut my 287 page book down into 120 pages? What is the most important part of this story? So that's a whole nother little subject we'll go into. But yes, outlines are very, very important. And not only is it when you're building your characters, and it's like, okay, location, where am I at? Am I in a sci-fi world? Am I in a contemporary world, which is current day, or is it an alternate universe, or is it contemporary, which contemporary meaning it's a current times, is what's happening today, or do I take it to a futuristic one or whatever? But you also have to, when you're doing outline, you have to remember as you're writing through, it helps you keep from having conflicts with when you're way down deep into your novel and you go back, oh my God, what was Mary's color of her eyes? Because I caught myself plenty of time through edits going, wow, Mary had green eyes up here on page 4, but by the time I hit page 172, she had gray eyes. How'd that happen? So you just gotta make sure you don't have any conflicts going on there. You can always look back. Or you kill a guy somewhere, like the bartender back on chapter 3, and then all of a sudden the bartender's in there talking to another guy in chapter 7. What is he, a ghost? So if you kill a character off, make sure, there's a reason you're bringing him back. So it's just to help with conflicting. Because like I said, 600 books in, and I found all kinds of conflicts on authors going, wait a minute, this guy was stuck in the barn doing something just the previous chapter, and now you've got him over here at Darcy's house doing. It's like, well, how did he get out from underneath the beam, woman? You threw a beam on him. Who got him out? And that made me mad, and I would just throw the book because I didn't want to read anymore because they didn't take their time to try to get me invested in that story.
Yeah, outlining is important. It's your own roadmap as a writer to get somewhere, your destination for your reader. And so, like, we literally just went on vacation, and we went from Waco to Corpus Christi, and we went down the first time. We went down, we just told GPS the quickest route, and it took us on some more like 2-lane highway type things, and we made good time. But we had a couple of odd stops in some small towns where you have to stop because the highway has a red light on it,
Right.
And literally one of those towns was having a street festival, and the street was blocked off. We had to go around a little detour. True story. And that's things I couldn't have predicted. But while I was following the outline, it took little turns that made the trip that much more colorful. So now I've got a story to tell that when we were in, Luling, or I think where it was, like we had to take some weird detour on some side road, and now I have the story to tell. And that little thing by following this outline, but then it creates a depth. So it's a weird where people like, well, Stephen King's famous for being what they call a pantser, where he just writes. Now, how true that is or not, I don't know. I'm just going by people will say. I somewhat feel that's embellished, personally.
Right.
But if you have a map, you have this guide, so you can go down on little cow trails and have the freedom to, because you're going to get back to your main story. Just like that trip we took the side street I knew we were going to get back on the road to Corpus. But we had to take a little weird detour, and now the story has some color to it, and that's
absolutely right.
That's corny. That might be a corny, metaphor for it all, but it's true.
No, it's very, very accurate, because I was just going to go into that as well. Is about when I start my outlines, I'm not so anal. I spend a month on them. I'll start out real quick. Okay, I know I'm going to start at this point where the action starts. I always start my books where right in the middle of action. So, and usually with my romance, is some action that happened in the previous book, and the secondary character in there is now my first character in this one. So it's like I starting that action, that part, and start taking off the story. So I already have a basic idea of where I'm going to start them out at.
Right.
But then it's the point of, okay, how far do I go before I have some real good action? Because you don't want to bore your reader all the way into the middle of the book, and then all of a sudden you meet the exciting thing starts happening. But then you don't want to go so fast that you don't have character development while you're going through it, because you want to have invested. So like maybe 50 or 60 pages in, I've got some kind of interaction going with these my romance characters. Not sex, just they're talking. They met each other. They bumped into each. Something's happening that grabs the interest of the reader. So, and that happens with that outline. Like, I want to get just so many pages in before I have this interaction, so I don't bore my reader.
Right.
But again, it's just a very global look at it. So my little outline is like, I will free-form right when I get to the point where they're starting to interact. All of a sudden, my creativity just starts busting, and within that outline, I'm actually writing the book. Yeah. It's like, it's like, okay, I got to this certain point, and then I'll start putting it over into my manuscript to the format, make sure I've got where I need to go and everything. So, yeah, outline has to be there.
I feel
at least the start.
To me, that the outline is like I was saying with the road trip, it's a safety net.
Right.
It keeps me on track, but it's not. I'm still in control.
It's not a cage. Yeah.
No, yes, it is a safety net, I guess, not a cage. So, like, for instance, with Marav, I knew way back when they're going to follow the trail. If you haven't read it, spoilers, I guess, but they're going to follow the trail of how the bandit is this metal is turned into the bandit, because it's a secret location of the bandit. If they follow how the material gets there, they would find the thing. And so I knew there was going to be a scene at a Russian refinery in Siberia. I knew that from the get-go. I had no idea until the day it came out of coming out of my mind onto the keyboard that there was going to be a character there named the Doc, and that Doc knew all this stuff, and they were going to meet him, and he was going to take him down this whole other trail. And so when it just sort of came out, I went with it. But guess what? It fit the damn outline.
Exactly. It's funny that you're mentioning this, because it's the exact same thing that happens to me with every single book. I have this, especially when I'm doing a series and I know these characters so well and what I want, where I'm really overall trying to take the whole full series to the end. But it's like I'll start out and these characters, they say, no, Celeste, we're taking you there. It's like, where did I come up with that? It's almost like they're talking to you when you're in that world, you're with them. It's like they're telling you this story, and they're going like, no, I wouldn't do it that way. I'm going to go that way. I would have reacted this way. Like I said, authors are insane. We are totally insane. Yeah. Because I just feel like the characters are just feeding me this story, and I'm putting it down on some paper. Where are we going? Because I'll get excited about coming back to the book after I went like a couple of days I wasn't into the book, and I'll come back. I'm like so excited to see where these characters are going to take me. Yeah. Where are we going today? And sometimes I have control over them.
And it's what's crazy is, and I know you felt this too, like you're just saying, like the character of the Doc just shows up one day from my mind to my fingers to the keyboard, and there he is. And when he shows up, I saw the whole damn guy. Yeah. I saw him as a Weasley guy in a pair of coveralls with shoe polish black hair and a little Weasley mustache, and he smoked too much, and then but when he was on his own, he smoked weed, and he was just this weird little loner, creepy guy. And when he showed up fully.
Like, boom.
The whole damn thing. The whole thing. And sure enough, following.
What I know of Marav, that was a beautiful character to have what was going on, of them being stuck in Russia and all this. Perfect. Absolutely perfect character. Like I said, they'll pop out of your head sometimes, like, oh, I didn't know that part of the story yet, and I need to build this person in. In other words, we're trying to tell the future authors out there is don't force it.
No.
At least know, and I'm to keep back on our topic, is our protagonist and our antagonist. I'm sure you read or heard that all over the place, but your protagonist is your main character that you're hoping someone will love, and that you want to take your readers, like that's their story that's taking you through there. And then you have your secondary characters, and the one he just mentioned, the Doc, that's a secondary character. The story's not all about them, but they have a lot to do with that story continuing. Your antagonist, and I'm going to tell everybody here, if you can't tell me, like if you're saying right now, yeah, I got this great story, I'm write, and I got all this idea, and it's going to end like this and stuff. If you do not have an antagonist, just hit leave and just go ahead and leave, because we can't help you. No time ever, even movies or anything, do you not have an antagonist. Doesn't mean they have to be this evil guy that lurks in the dark shadows and stuff. It could be a mother-in-law. It could be your a coworker that just whistles at certain times of the day and just sets you off or something. There's your antagonist. They're antagonizing to cause something else to happen in that book, or a reaction back from your protagonist. So those secondary characters are very, very important, and they will pop out of the woodwork at you. I've had a lot of secondaries in mine as well. As well, I don't know where they came from, but hey, this is working very well, and what I wanted to have happen.
The chief word that comes back to me, and we talked about my rule of normalcy the other day, but I'll use a different one than this, but it's along the same lines. Clarity. Mm-hmm. Clarity. Now, you can have nuance all day long. And look at the movie The Dark Knight, with Heath Ledger's Joker and all that stuff. That's about as nuanced and complex and layered a movie as possible. Well, it's also incredibly simple. It's Batman good, Joker bad. Joker wants to cause mayhem. Batman wants to stop him from the mayhem. And that's basically it.
Yeah.
But there's a shitload of layers of nuance in there, but it still comes down to mayhem or chaos versus good. And if we should do a whole show on antagonists, by the way. But the clearer your antagonist, the better. The more convoluted, you're going to have trouble. That you know what. It didn't have to be a twister. Who's the antagonist of Twister? Tornadoes.
A tornado, exactly.
So it doesn't had to be like a mustache, twirling guy. It can be some force that's opposing the protagonist or whatever. But back on the whole thing with outlining, if you have this outline and you stick to it, faithfully is the wrong word. If you just trust it, that's the word. If you trust your outline and you have clarity, then you're going to be fine, and you can take those detours and have these discoveries as you write it, and you're not going to get hurt.
And yeah, Chris, you're right about clarity. You have to be clear not only to yourself and where your story is going to go. You're also going to have to be clear to your audience about where you're taking them. What world are you building? So it's like you have to establish your timeline. Like I said before, am I in the current world? Is it going to go across from them being young to them dying and they're older, or is it all happening with us within a 6-month period? Does it happen all within a day? So your timeline has to be very, very clear. And also, you got to constantly think about maturity level. Is like me and Chris. Everybody's 18 and plus with us because we have F-bombs everywhere. We have all kinds of, erotic romance. Come on, 18 plus. So y'all know your maturity level.
I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could write not 18 plus, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I'll even, for example, I'm like us, we're firing off F-bombs. Or are you going to have a character that says, oh, phooey, I burned the muffins. It's like... Yeah, me, I go, God damn it, I burned the muffins, but somebody's like, oh my goodness. So is it going to be one of those type books where you're going to be careful about your language you use and stuff, some maturity level, you have to worry about that. Your publisher, if you go out to seek an actual publisher other than self-publishing, you have to worry about that as well.
You think that matters? Not to detour too much, but do you think that matters that much, and like in terms of sales or marketability, like whether you curse or don't? Do you think it?
It doesn't.
Okay.
No, and that's why the one particular, because you don't want to shock them either. Like when I told you we came up with the snowflake warning in yours, which is I'm telling you right now that you're going to see people blown up, you're going to see people die. So if you're a snowflake, don't bother.
It's not your book.
Because you're going to have reviewers that will come in, and if you shock them, their senses without warning, especially these days, you're going to get bad reviews. Yeah. Like for example, way back when my very first book So excited about it. Put it out there. First a couple of reviews, 5 stars, and all of a sudden, boom, 3 stars. I had a 2-star. I was like, what the hell happened? I got a 2-star. Who hates me? You'll get over it after a while. It's kind of like, I don't care. You can't please everybody. But I actually contacted the reviewer and said, what was it? I'm not mad at you. I just want to know, well, how can I improve? What did I miss so bad that you're such a prolific reader? It was off Goodreads or something like that. I said, please tell me what I can do to improve. Well, she was impressed. She says, I've never had an author contact me before.
Right.
Usually they're mad or something, but for them to actually ask me, hey, how can I improve? Then you'll come to find out, oh, she didn't like it that I didn't use condoms in it. I'm thinking, I'm in a fiction world, and I should have had mention of condoms. I'm like, oh, she wanted a real world. Okay, and I got sci-fi aliens coming from Marfa, Texas, but she was so concerned about the damn condom. I was like, okay, condoms. Oh, so now you'll see every one of my books at the very beginning. It says, please note, there's no condom use in this book. I didn't want to take away from the explosive joining of my characters. So, then I would say, please don't try this at home. Wink. So you have to consider that kind of thing. Warn these people. So now I warn people up front. If you're going to freak out over condoms, don't give me a bad review because I told you up front that they're not going to have condoms. Okay.
Right.
And also, you have to clue them. Like some people write about rape scenes. Okay. Right. I can't imagine even what kind of a publisher would even take them. But now there's so much self-publishing, they'll have rape scenes, snuff scene, all that. Yeah. But there's got to be a warning there for people to let them know. It's like, hey, this might trigger events from your life or something because there are rape in here. Don't write. My traditional publisher, you don't write about incest. You don't write about rape. You don't write any of those traumatizing things that can trigger people like that may have had that happen in their life. So you got to be careful.
One of our movies back in the indie movie days, the movie you saw, called A Killing. Mm-hmm. And one of the few bad reviews we got, which might have been the only bad review we got, I couldn't think of it. But anyway, was because the killing is off screen. You never see the killing. There's no violence in the movie. He just tells the story, orally. He audibly tells the story. And they wrote a bad review because that was traumatizing. I didn't expect to hear that, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I didn't show it. I thought it was okay because it didn't show anything. It's just him telling the story. And somebody, nevertheless, still got offended.
It's almost like Freddie had to put this list of, hey, if you get triggered by the word murder.
Heck, let me read to them our snowflake warning.
Yes. Yes, please.
Which is
I love it.
In all honesty, it's a stroke of genius that you came up with. I'll do credit where credit's due. It says right here, you can't see it, I know, but snowflake warning. This novel contains foul language and extreme violence. Do not continue reading if you might be triggered by descriptions of what happens to bodies when shot, stabbed, kicked, or blown up. Otherwise, have a blast. That's exactly what it is. So that was a stroke of genius on your part because I was worried on a personal level, and I still am, to be honest with you, that I used to work at a freight company with like a bunch of little old ladies, and I know some of them got the book, and I'm like, this is so rated R. This is such a rated R book. It's so violent. It's so much. There's no sex. It's just all violence and
Try writing. I'm like in the bedroom. You're sitting in the corner looking at it, Roman, and people at work are fanning over you, or they're going like looking at you like porn. So it's like it's just something you have to. If you're going to be an author, you got to take it. Yeah. If you're going to put yourself out there for your creativity, you look at them going, I don't care what you think. If you don't like it, don't pick the book up. But I've got a ton of fans who do, so.
Well, honestly, everybody who's read it, it's never come up. It's never come up. One lady addressed it because I asked her to. And all she said was she said there's 2 scenes in it that I was kind of like, but I had to ask her and prod her to even tell me. It must not have been that bad.
Right, exactly. For
You
you
know?
to coax it out, it's like if someone asked you about it, what do you say? What's the worst scene? It's this one where, and I know exactly which one you're talking about. I was going, yeah, but that's just me. I'm weird. But some people just freak out.
The eyeball scene.
Yes, the eyeball scene.
So
Yeah,
that's been one of the, actually. That's I haven't got. I've gotten 8 reviews, I think, on Amazon, and I've talked to different people, but like that scene has probably been mentioned the most.
Really?
Yeah, that scene
Yeah.
in a positive way. They like it.
Yes, they're like, we were ready for you to take out that woman. And that's how a good author, for someone to actually understand that moment that you wrote about, it better have this nice lead up to it. It's not just killing for the sake of killing. There was a reason why, and she had to put this thing down, because I need to get the hell to my next step, and this thing is in my way.
Well,
take it down.
Connecting this back to outlining. So when to me, when I'm outlining, it's the logistical outlining that we talked about before. It's the character outline that we talked about, and it's the kind of the content outlining, I guess, for lack of a word, where you're talking about the maturity rating and things like that. But there's also thematic outlining and things in terms of what you want to achieve. And like to me, with Marav, and spoiler warning, I guess, but one of the things. So I want to write a story where you have this woman that has to do these brutal things, and I wanted it to be something that you don't normally see a female heroine do. I wanted to do that on purpose. But I also knew that I don't know how to say this. Like, if the women wanted to play, if the women in this world of this book want to play ball, then they have to play ball, like the same as the men. So the scene in there where when Marav kills this other woman, I made it particularly violent and particularly brutal because I wanted to demonstrate that no one gets spared in this world. I don't care if you're nice and neat. I don't care if you're a little kid. I don't care if you're a woman. Even the character's name is Pixie Cut, because I wanted you to see in your head a little pixie cut, little bouncy woman getting fucking maimed.
Yeah.
Because I wanted thematically you to see that no one gets spared, to heighten the angst, because to make you more nervous of what's going to happen to Rob, because
what is she going to do now? Yeah. But what you handled it so well, Chris, is that there was this lead up to it where at that point when Rob finally takes her out, a true fan will go, yes. It's like, it's like I'm completely immune to any blood, guts, and eyeballs exploding. It's like, yes, Pixie Cut's gone. So
yes,
that is the key, is to lead them up so where you have so much connection with Marav that you're happy that she was able to have that happen because of that crap that Pixie Cut was giving her. So
right, and then but it's only possible because of the thematic outlining I knew I wanted to do, and just like with Visiting Darkness, the last act. I don't want to spoil anything. That's not my place to spoil your stuff. But the last confrontation, I guess we'll say, is totally not anything you expect. It's like it's not left field. It's not left field because it fits the story. It fits.
Right.
It's not anything but it's not what you expect.
But it makes sense.
Yes.
And that's the whole key to it, is like, oh, shit. I never thought about that.
And what makes it cool is because we've got this hard-boiled cop guy put in this ethereal situation, and you earned it. So, like, you had done the thematic outlining as well to get me there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. There's a like you said, there's an art to it, and I know there's so many people out there that's hopefully listening to us that say, "Gosh, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to write a Visiting Darkness or a Marav. How do I get there?" It's like, but It's baby steps. If you try to rush into just saying, hey, all these people writing novels out there, I'm going to write one. I was a good writer when I was in college or I was in whatever, but you have a really good story you want to tell. I've had so many people just like pull their hair out because they have fumbled over or or they'll be on it for years sometimes. And that's what happened to Chris there for a while, because he did not know the structure, the little rules, those little unwritten rules everywhere that us authors who've been there a long time say, oh, that I got hit with that. I got hit with that. Ooh, I learned this the hard way. And so we're trying to share that part where you don't spend 10 years waiting to get your great novel out.
That's why when I come up with the idea of Story Demon, I called it Story Demon, not Author Demon, because even now that I've got a published book, I still consider myself a storyteller. Because I've done it. I've been used to draw. I did indie movies, and then now I'm dealing with novels. Like I at heart, I've used social media and YouTube and all this thing. I've done all that stuff. I'm a storyteller at heart. I had to learn the craft of writing a novel, and that's what 3.5 years it took me to write Marav. I'm saying at least half of that was just craftsmanship learning. At least half of that, maybe probably more like 75% of it really was just me learning the craft of writing a damn book versus just telling a story
and getting the formula. Yeah, like the formula. I explained to him, and he didn't realize, because Chris didn't do like me and read 600 books. He says, "Nah, I ain't gonna read nobody else's book. I'm just gonna write my book." He didn't realize, like, hey, the little standard I learned when I read 600 of them, especially I started learning that, I'm going to look at the traditional published ones now. I quit reading the ones that were just self-pubs going out there, because it's free will. You're like, how did you get published? And I started realizing, they're just publishing their own. It didn't matter. Right. No one's editing them or anything. So read traditional published books, like Stephen King, all that. Yeah. To get 2,500 characters is my standard that I know a chapter of words. So chapter to chapter to chapter, I cut it off. 2,500 is my goal. Sometimes I'll stop at 2,300 because, boy, I want to stop it and drag them into the next chapter. So you want to stop it at a certain point. I've gone the longest at, I think it was 3,200 on one. Because it was so intense what was going on, I didn't want to cut it and then jump into another chapter. But you don't want to have a 5,000 word chapter and what did I say before? Characters? No, words. 2,500 words versus all of a sudden you hit a 10,000 word chapter. No, you got to also learn how to chunk it out, because the whole goal of also an author is to keep them reading. Right. So if you go in, you're starting to in a chapter, and this is also what you'll use within your outline about when you want to make your breaks. When what is there going to be a twist at one end of them? It'll drag them into the next chapter, but you always want to end that chapter with their mouth watering, wanting to go to the next one. And to be able to do that, you have to have game plan to do that. You can only have so many happy accidents while you're writing. There's game plan to it. So outline, you can say, hey, when I get to fifth chapter, I'm going to throw them a doozy, And that's a great point you just made. Despite the happy accidents, despite a character like the Doc just arriving to help me out tremendously, Ethel was just a character that just sort of arose that helped me out probably the most of any character. But those happy accidents aside, like 95+% of what you're doing is crafted, planned, structured, thought out, all those kind of things. For every one happy accident, you've got hours of planned things that you have to execute and then you lean on, because I know you've been there as well. Real life catches up with you, and you want to be a writer, but you also got to fix a garage door or something randomly, some shit like that. Dogs out of your room. Yeah. And next thing you know, you're off kilter. When you go back to it, it's not the happy accident that pulls you back into the world. It's the outline. It's the outline. Yeah, exactly. You're like, okay, where was I? Oh my God, you're so stuck. Yeah. So what was that? There was one more item, and I wrote it down. I'm going to bring it up here. Okay, your basic plot. That's another thing you want to pull into your outline is just a basic plot. You can get stuck, or you can mess yourself up really good if you go, oh, well, I want it to do this and this and this, and then the ending I want it to have here. I just got a basic idea, and all of a sudden you've got a 20-page summary of a basic plot. No, that's you trying to write your book as you're going and freewheeling. Okay, right. So I wrote a really quick. It took me 5 seconds to write this. Okay, I've been an author for a long time, but right. Here's an idea, just a sample of what I came up with. So last but not least, what is your basic plot? Again, this doesn't have to be a 50-page summary. Okay, so where am I starting with my characters, and where do I want them to end up? For example, Bob Smith is a grocery store clerk. He's bored out of his mind, unfulfilled. He snaps and snatches a hostage in the grocery aisle and takes a hapless trip across the states in a bid to figure out who he is. Meanwhile, his hostage also has the same problem, and they bond by the time they hit Arkansas and end up in all types of crazy situations before finally coming to some hard conclusions about why they needed a break from reality. Meanwhile, a hardcore FBI agent assigned to catch Crazy Bob is always seconds away from snatching the duo before either can come to their senses to right all the wrong they've done. So there is no guts and meat to what these guys did. We don't know exactly how Bob snatched that poor dude out of the line at the grocery store. But overall, that's what I want to have happen. That's the story I'm going to bring to my reader. Now you get to flesh it out from that point. So have your basic plot.
Yeah.
How am I going to start it? Who am I dealing with in it? And you saw there we have our protagonist, which is Bob. We've got our sidekick, which is our little guy he snatches in the thing. We've got our antagonist. In this case, would be the FBI guy, because it can't be the FBI guy is the main guy. Right. And Bob is the antagonist because we're starting it with Bob. It's Bob's story. So now this time the FBI agent is the antagonist. So it just all depends how you want to tell your story. So that's my 2 cents worth.
There was another screenplay guy, I can't remember who it was. He said that basically you want to at some point do what he called the TV guide summary. If you're younger, you probably don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But they used to make a book. You go to the grocery store, and it was for a week at a time. You'd buy the damn TV guide. They would tell you what's going to be on TV in a book for all the TV stations that are available to you. And you would read it to see what plan you're going to watch. And they would have a little mini summaries about 2 sentences long for each movie or show.
And in screenplays, we call them log lines.
Yeah. And he said, have your TV guide summary. Now, I guess we call it as like the on-screen guide when it tells you a little summary when you hit the guide button on your thing. I guess that is what you would call it now, your guide summary. But anyway, it's a good strategy or trick or whatever to always have that. Now, I will confess to you, that's probably my biggest weakness of all this. I still have trouble coming up with the 30-second elevator pitch for Marav. And I've wrote the damn thing and it's done. I still people literally we were in San Antonio and I'm waiting on Trish to shop, like a normal guy waiting on his wife to shop. I'm bored out of my mind just standing there. And I've got my writer t-shirt that says my t-shirt says something like, I'm a writer, I hate people, or something like that.
Yeah.
So the lady asked her, are you really a writer? And I go, yeah. She, what'd you write? I said, book Marav. She goes, what's it about? And I'm like, and I
yeah.
I'm no good. I am no good at this part of it. It's really hard for me because I want to tell you like this much.
Yeah, remember the little blurb on the back of your book?
Yeah,
I had to hone him in. I had to hone him in on that blurb because you got 160 words that you can use to fill up that back of that book.
Yeah,
160, no more.
This is really probably more a you than it is me on this blurb. Because I was like, I
don't know. What's it doing?
So to me, it's really hard to say, well, what's my book about? Well, I want to tell you the goddamn.
And that one I made up about Bob and the thing. That's
perfect. That's perfect.
That's it. That's your thing that you tell your person who walks up and says, are you really a writer? Well, what are you writing? Well, I'm talking. I have a story called Snapped in the Grocery Line. Oh, what's it about? There it was.
I'll tell you, this is what I struggle with. I overthink what should be a surprise or not. Because in this, I'll tell you what I literally did tell the lady at the clothes store.
Mm-hmm.
I said, she goes, what's that about? I said, it's about this agent that's been exiled on another planet, and she comes back to get her daughter back. But the problem is there's a bunch of other people want the daughter too. Now, I hesitated. That's actually, that's a good pitch. What I just said is what I told her, and that is a good elevator pitch for Maroth. It is. But in my mind, I hesitated because I'm like, well, isn't the daughter supposed to be a secret? I mean, because I don't tell you about the daughter until about a third of the way through. You don't even know she exists. So I feel like I'm giving up a secret.
Right.
So I don't know.
But you really not, because you have so much story around that there's her motive. Okay, so you can change, instead of mentioning daughter, you can change the motives that these powers higher than her have taken something so important from her. For all they know, it's a damn diamond. So you turn that daughter into something that's important that she can't live without, that she needs to have returned. It's everything to her. So that takes away the, what's the word they call it when they say when someone's doing a review, take your own risk when you come in. There's a word for it. Review tell you is like, enter at your own risk of reading this. I've got some spoilers. You've got spoilers, yeah. So instead of giving your own spoilers away, because I never tell about the thing that happens at the end of how my, this paranormal thing comes about. All I say is like, hey, he needs to stop something from continuing making innocent killers. Where have you ever heard innocent killers? Before.
Dude, that should be like the title of one of the series, like the third one should be Innocent Killers.
Innocent Killers.
Innocent Killers.
Yeah, Max Innocent Killers. Yeah.
So I could do the elevator pitch for your book for Visiting Darkness. I could do it. It'd be like a hard-boiled detective. I just got a mind fart. A hard-boiled detective on the case of some random acts of violence,
mass murders.
Or what's the word I'm looking for? Mass shootings or whatever.
Mass murders.
Yeah. A hardboiled detective on the trail of some mass murders finds all is not as it appears, and that would be totally work.
Exactly. Just nice and quick. Yeah.
Ask me to do that for my own work. I'm like,
yeah, because I always get asked, it's 10 years of writing for me, going on 11 now. So I got used to so much, people ask me, what's it about? What do you write? Well, now I've got so many different types, like memoir. I've got the memoir how-to. I've got the crime thriller. I've got the romance. So yeah, if you start branching out to whole different ones and different kind of elevator pitches, what you call to them. So yeah, but part of that to be able to quickly tell somebody, and also if you're trying to, get your book out to a traditional publisher, sometimes you can give like, hey, I got this idea for this book. I want to write this. I'm like 3/4 of the way done. Do you want to? Can I submit it to you when it's completed? Or if you want to go that route, what's it about? They're going to want to know what it's about. Give me a summary. They don't want no 50-page summary. They're going to want this elevator pitch, which is if you don't know what this thing is about, why should they care about what it's about?
I got it. I think I got one from Rob.
Okay.
An exiled agent returned to Earth to get her daughter back. The problem is everybody else wants her too.
Well, don't mention the daughter. Because it's going to drive you nuts that you're giving it away. Well, come back to something very important.
If I make up my mind I don't care about that, then I'd be fine. I'm not sure that the marketing, you take it to Hollywood and you've got, Steven Spielberg's people working on the marketing of it. I don't know that they give a shit about giving away the daughter or not. I mean, she's going to be in the trailer. You're going to see a little kid in the trailer because she's in too much of the book not to be,
Right. Well, there's another thing. With my book, Visiting Darkness, I don't want to give away that ending. Okay? It's almost like a M. Night Shyamalan. What's his name? M. Night Shyamalan.
Close enough.
Yeah, once you see his movie, you're like, I can't watch it again because I already know what happened.
Yeah.
The twist, that major twist he always gives. But, that's kind of the issue with mine is like, once I give it away, it's like,
Did you see Old, by the way? Did you see Old?
Old.
The one he did not too long ago. It's called Old. OLD, like old, like old age. It's just called Old. Have you seen that one?
No.
Dude, check it out.
I will.
It came out during lockdown. One of those, there's some movies when it came out. It was like one of those. and we went, and there was like nobody in the theater. It was awesome, and like it's like really good. It's like really good. It's. I'm glad we're talking about that one because it's totally like one of those movies that he had to think out the outline. There's no way he could have pulled that off.
Yeah, there is no such thing as, even when you're watching these movies or reading these books and you're thinking, wow, that just flowed. When you hear a reader come back or a reviewer come back and go, the flow, it was so smooth. You think that just happens by accident?
No.
It's reading it 1,000 times going, does that, saying out loud, reading out loud, having somebody else read it out loud while you're sitting there with them just to see if it's smooth going from one section to the next. It's like a maestro of the words. I call it like a maestro of the paper.
Right.
So yeah, if you readers out there, you potential authors, definitely know your readers. You've read books. You're like, man, I've got the story in my head. I saw somebody else, and I like reading this favorite author, but I want to do that as well. I want to be an author too. So pay attention. There's a lot of different angles that comes at you. And outline. If you got that outline, you're so much farther ahead than anybody out there that I've seen some of the writings of the 600-page books I read.
Here's the log line for this episode that we're doing right now. Outlines will save your ass.
Exactly. Thank you. Quick log line.
All right. So with that, I feel like they have their homework. Go out and make an outline for their book.
Make an outline for your book. Get your theme. Make sure you know your theme. Name, even if you only just name your protagonist. I have Bob Smith. Antagonist is Jane Doe. Here they are. What's Jane Doe's flaws? What are they going to do to this person? So if you just basic, and then what's your overall, most important, your plot line. Yeah. So if you can get those down, then this outline is going to be working very, very well. Because next week I want to talk. Our next show I want to talk about that first chapter, about the protagonist, how you start out that first hit into your novel.
I like that.
That will always pick somebody and go, here you go. Always picture a hand coming out of the page or the computer screen, and they pull you right into there, and all of a sudden what's that Last Action? What's that one, that movie where Arnold Schwarzenegger and they had him, the guy gets into the movie with him? That's kind of like
Last Action Hero. The little kid got in the movie.
Yeah, Last Action Hero.
Yeah.
That's where I go. I go into that world with my characters. You have got to be there with those characters.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about protagonists and starting out your first part of your novel on our next show.
All right. Well, if you like this, like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, all the good stuff. And by the way, I've been saluting. You're the actual real soldier here. So is my salute. Tell me how to do a real one.
Thumb up against the index finger, up against your eyebrow right there. Okay, arm out at an angle.
Yeah. Am I good?
And then pop it. Yeah. Pop.
All right. So with that,
out of there. Hoorah.
All right,
See you next time.